It's been a gut punch that we've seen thus far, not just from China, but now with the regulatory probe, potentially being the worry. I mean, the thing right now, it's about developers, but it's really about streaming. I mean, services is going to be the key, and thus far, I'd say it's disappointment in terms of what we're hearing. You want to start seeing more details coming out of the streaming service, and at least them dropping some of the tea leaves.
Sure.
Thus far, investors lack the details, and it's all just been bad news, and today's another gut punch.
What about what Ed said earlier, though, that it's streaming itself, which if you're looking at, as a regulator, at breaking up Apple, for example, and who knows if that's what they're going to pursue, but would you break it up along the lines of services as one business and hardware as another, anything like that?
Yeah, and Ed made a great point. I just continue to focus. The services business, in our opinion, is worth $400 to $450 billion as a standalone entity. So we've continued from a valuation perspective, the way that we've kind of viewed Apple here is on a sum of the parts. But no doubt, it was viewed from a regulatory. You had the lawsuit a few weeks ago in the Supreme Court. That got passed through. That was viewed as noise. Now with DOJ, potentially Apple in the area code they're looking at, this really takes on that noise to a real threat.
Are you talking about the Qualcomm lawsuit?
No, I'm talking about the lawsuit in terms of the Supreme Court where they allowed the antitrust potentially, which had the M word, the monopoly word. Now with the DOJ, that's why right now I'm hearing from investors even the last half hour, what could this mean in terms of its business model? And now, is this a real threat?
How can that business be valued as the services business be valued as standalone if the whole argument the whole time is that this is a flywheel and that the two are interrelated and that one helps the other? How can you all of a sudden just separate them and say, this is worth this much and this is worth this much?
It's all part of the flywheel, but fundamentally, we view, even though it's one and two and they play together, in terms of the valuation of services, we believe that value, $50 billion of revenue, if you kind of sum of the parts of what that value is, no doubt, if A doesn't have B, the value is not there.
On its own, presumably, it's a very different business than if it's not Apple hardware pushing you to those services.
Yeah, if they ever separated services from hardware, it would be an all-game sort of, this would be what I would view as more of a draconian scenario that we would always view as impossible. But now that it's potentially on the table, this has added another threat to Apple that investors didn't see coming to today.
And I think the divorce of iTunes, moving it off with this new announcement, sort of tells you also that to the point of linking services to hardware is that much more important, because the whole reason iTunes existed at the outset was to have these single downloads, but then they made it available on PCs, right? That actually never really took off. They're recognizing that and saying, you know what, it's hardware driven, it's hardware specific, it's hardware dependent. And, back to the services equation, beyond music, they haven't really done much more. We're going to look at the TV business, see how that's going to play out. We don't even know if it's going to be priced. There's a chance it's just going to be free, which, again, ties it that much more closely to hardware. So I think that is the linchpin for them in terms of, with all the devices out there, that's our network. We're gonna sort of goose it as much as possible.
What about China?
I mean, right now, the biggest threat to Apple is China. Besides just on the demand side, 20% iPhones, it's when you look at Foxconn.
In China.
Bought out of China. When you look at Foxconn on the production side, could there potentially be not just retaliatory, but can they kind of touch that and have supply chain disruption? That's why they've really become the poster child of the trade wars in terms of Apple. So right now, you've seen that as a major overhang from a demand and supply. You add the DOJ, this kind of continues to be a nightmare scenario in terms of news flow. WWDC right now continues to get overshadowed by news that's happening on the other side of the world.